Gentlemen, ladies, and welcome to another episode of I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast. I am joined by another special guest today. First time on the show, one of my longest friends, not by height, because that's Justin, but one of the longest friends I've had in my life, one of my best friends, also getting married this year. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jordan Tamaro.
Hi, how are you doing, Eric?
Oh, pretty good.
Pleasure to be on the show. Very excited for this.
Yeah, this is actually the second podcast episode you and I have ever recorded.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the first one is?
Very vaguely. What was it?
It was also the first podcast I ever recorded when I was in an audio class in college, which is I scooped up you and Mike.
I do remember
our
this.
mutual friend, and we went over to the college. We went into this really tiny sound booth, and recorded a podcast complaining about the mishandling of the Shrek movies, and that audio
that had to have been
is completely lost.
8 years ago,
probably 10. Yeah, we're also joined by the special guest, the Furnace, because houses need heat. Deal with it. We're honest here. I don't try to overproduce this show. I don't hide behind a curtain. I'm not like the Wizard of Oz. I am very open about things that go on and how I record. So we're all on Front Street, baby. Because you can't. I think it's really important. And just talking about podcasting, because I do think everybody should have a podcast and find people that they can have conversation with and talk about very similar things. And I think it's nice knowing where your placement is, because there's growth. If you start out going like, this is overly produced, there's no mistakes, everything's perfect, you're setting yourself up for,
absolutely.
I mean, there's always speed bumps on the road.
Yeah, and then those speed bumps that do occur, you learn from, and you can only improve from that point on. So
I mean, because I do try to a couple. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this, you've heard the ads I make for Anchor. I want people to get into podcasting. Just for you have been a part of a couple bands, and would you agree that one of the biggest things, like when you're starting a band, is people trying to bite off more than they can chew right in the beginning, and not easing into it? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, or my favorite is when you have somebody who has very little experience, and this isn't to go against anybody that's trying to play music, that wants to learn to play music or play out. I mean, it's a great thing, and if you are doing that, keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully you'll become successful. But you see like some of these kids out there that they need to have the best amplifier, the best drums on the market, but not necessarily have the experience.
Right.
And it's just like, all right, let's
visually they'll look good.
Yeah, visually you look great, but you can't play your instrument. So let's not skip everything to just try to get to where you need to be in the end. Let's learn along the way and improve as you go along.
I say the same thing to anybody getting into podcasting. Is you could get a Rock Band USB microphone, plug it into your computer, or you don't even need to buy anything. Your phones practically are microphones, and you can, not to bring more Anchor into this, but like a service like Anchor, you can record your show right like to your phone.
Yeah.
And I know a bunch of other companies that offer podcast hosting do that, so that's wonderful. You and I also share something. We share a birthday, although 1 year apart. So, but we're both 90s babies. We grew up in the 90s. First thing to come to mind from the 90s. Go.
Rocket Power.
There you go.
Well, it was more early 2000s, but
no, that was late 90s.
It was late 90s. But if you want to dig deep into the 90s, I'd say Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's probably, I mean, I could episode after episode, I mean, just going through my head, remember the plots, the characters, the villains. I mean, that is definitely, I mean, that's the
craziest thing that I learned about that show in the last few years. I knew it was from like the footage of the fights are from a show called Super Sentai.
Yeah. From
Japan. But what's crazy is that what the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the dinosaur Zords, the stuff that we're super nostalgic over.
Yeah.
And that's what kicked off Power Rangers in the United States, is actually like the 15th season of Super Sentai.
Right.
So for everybody in Japan, like that season might be nostalgic for people, but it's like, that's not the originals. That's
I can't even tell you the amount of the toys. I mean, every Christmas, every birthday, you know, my parents, Jordan, what do you want? Oh, well, I want the Megazord, you know, or I want the, you know, the Jason Red Ranger, you know, action figure, or
the true leader of the Power Rangers.
The true leader, that's right.
This podcast does not support Tommy. I'll make that statement right now. Kudos to Jason David Frank, not just because he could absolutely destroy me in an MMA fight. I think more than any other actor, he has appeared more on Power Rangers than anyone else. So I'm glad he's, Tommy Oliver is a continuing part of the franchise. Right. But as a kid, I was able to realize, like, wait a minute, you're giving that guy shoulder pads and he's the leader? What's going on here? Where's Jason? What is this? But, yeah, so obviously this show is primarily about SpongeBob, but it's still in the family at Nickelodeon. You mentioned Rocket Power. What other shows or experiences do you remember watching Nickelodeon? Do you have like a moment that you can think about? Maybe a celebrity getting slimed at the Kids' Choice Awards, or an event they may have played up on TV, and anything like that, specifically to Nickelodeon, or were you just all around watching?
I was more the TV shows, you know. I mean, I used to love watching the Kids' Choice Awards, and, you know, it was always nice seeing like Nick Cannon. A big part of that. But, you know, as far as for Nickelodeon, I mean, you're all that, Keenan and Kel, the Amanda Show, you know, that's what I really grew up on. And if you want to get into like the cartoons, I mean, Cat Dog. I mean, I loved Cat Dog. Cat Dog was a great show.
Very underrated.
Extremely underrated. But I mean, that's really the core right there.
Not big into Rugrats.
I loved Rugrats, but that's the obvious. I mean,
yeah. What do you think Cat Dog is the most underrated 90s cartoon, or is there something else you can think about?
I would have to put a lot of thought into that, so that's something maybe we could come back to later in the show. There's a lot of good shows.
This is the stuff that you know those moments now. I mean, we're in the year 2020, and you've been in a situation where you're in the bathroom without your phone, and you start going a little stir crazy, like, what did we do before this?
Hey, start counting all the cracks and the tiles on the floor.
Yeah. This is the stuff I think about. I'm like, what's the most underrated show of the 90s? For Nickelodeon, I honestly would say Real Monsters.
Yeah, I can see that.
Cat Dog at least had, like, Cat Dog and Rocket Power had TV movies. They had big events. I think Real Monsters is one of the shows that just didn't get that. It ran its 52 and then it ended. It didn't have any big, like, promoted Christmas specials like even Rocco did. So, and I think that show absolutely could be ripe for a revival. Can you imagine? They were trying to be avoided by humans in the 90s. Now that everybody has cell phones and surveillance cameras, imagine being a monster in 2020. I want a total credit.
I could see that show coming back. I think that'd be very successful in today's, with today's kids. And I mean, even people like us now who are, you know, approaching 30, even some of us that may be in our 30s, that'd be something that I think parents now who may even have kids, you know, who used to be a fan of the show back then, could get into now and start watching with their kids.
Right. And that's why all the revivals on Netflix have been super successful. The first one, the Hey Arnold movie, they tried on TV, and I don't think it got the numbers they really expected. But then when they threw Rocco and Zim on Netflix, and then eventually Hey Arnold, all of those hit massive numbers, because that's how people are taking media now. They're not watching Nickelodeon on a Friday night. They're watching Netflix at 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's true.
So, to the big guy at hand.
It's too bad more of these shows weren't on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah, they did. Netflix and Nickelodeon struck a big deal, but a few of these shows are still sprung on Hulu, and Verve is another one, which offers a great selection. It's like maybe 10 shows, but I don't want to spend $10 a month just for the 10 shows. I absolutely want to, but I'm already, you know, it's like when you're paying for Netflix already, it's kind of hard to justify spending another And I got the WWE network, so that's now $20 a month.
Now you add in Disney Plus, and you add in all these other streaming services. And
Disney Plus, I like the year option. Where I paid that for the year, so I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And you save a chunk of money. SpongeBob, some people get this wrong, some people don't. Totally a 90s show. It debuted in 1999. It really was at the tail end. Do you remember watching it, the premiere? Do you remember, like, what's the earliest thought of SpongeBob you can think of?
So for me with SpongeBob, I'll be the first to say I don't know 100% when I watched it. I don't know if it was 1999 or if it was, early 2000s, 2000, 2001 really got deep into it. But, the earlier episodes of SpongeBob, do stick out to me. SpongeBob trying to get Squidward to try a Krabby Patty.
Oh, of course. Or anything that's memeable now.
Absolutely, yeah. Or any of the ones where he's trying to drive and continuously fails. Mrs. Puff just won't give him his boater's license.
Hey, man, if you're going to crash into people. The sister episode to this is to the episode we're watching today is the boating school one.
Yeah.
Which, you're going to be listening to after, but I already recorded because once again, the curtain's open. I don't mind. I think the issue with the boating school is that you're on a if you've ever seen any of those episodes and they show the track that you practice on, it's not a realistic road.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like both of us, when we went for our driving exams, they're like, pull into the main road. We're going out there. It's not like they have this weird obstacle course that's not going to really show you how to drive out on main roads and whatnot.
Oh, they're pretty much just driving out on sand and trying to avoid underwater rocks and coral.
Yeah, stay on the path. Even though the sea is just completely open, you should be able to just drive anywhere. That's not how it works. Being an adult now, we're both closer to 30 than we are 20. SpongeBob's still around, still hot, new movie coming out. Is it something you can appreciate more as an adult than you did as a kid? Or do you think it's just one of those things that you can look at it as a nostalgic, like Power Rangers is still around?
So what I think right now, it's not like your regular show. I mean, everybody knows SpongeBob. You can go up to a kid on the street now and say SpongeBob SquarePants, and they would know it. 5-year-old kid. That was us when we were 9, not even 10 years old. We knew SpongeBob, and here we are now approaching 30, and there are kids that are, like we said, 5, 6, 7 years old that still know SpongeBob. So I think this generation, pretty much anybody right now can really appreciate SpongeBob. It's not like you can go up to that same kid and say, hey, do you remember Doug? They'd look at you and, who's Doug?
What? They'll probably bring up some other, name a football player that's Doug. Like, who are you talking about?
Exactly. So I think SpongeBob is definitely something that we can appreciate today, whether it be a new movie that's coming out, a new episode. I think anybody can really get into it.
Yeah. One of the things, another yellow cartoon character, the Simpsons. The one thing I've always loved, even though
I thought you were going to say Pokemon Pikachu.
No, I mean, it's close too, but Simpsons, given the fact that they're just a cartoon where Pokemon has so many avenues of media.
Yeah.
The Simpsons premiered in 1989, and so when people that show should end, I go, you know what? For at least someone like me, it's comforting knowing that most Sunday nights there's a new episode of The Simpsons. I've lived, there hasn't been an era where The Simpsons didn't exist in my life. So I kind of want them to continue, the quality is up and down, but nothing going on for 20 years.
I mean, South Park's another one that's like that too.
Yeah.
You could tune in Wednesday nights and there's still a new episode of South Park on. I forget what season they're on right now, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, well, thankfully for them, their schedule, they get an episode done in 6 days. They can be so
up to date with what's going on in the world.
Something can happen, and they can make fun of it the next week on South Park. No other show has that liberty, as far as I know of. So, the episode of SpongeBob we're watching today is a season 1 episode. It is the first part of the 4th episode. It's called Naughty Nautical Neighbors. I saved this one for you when I kind of wrote down some of the guests I was having. This episode aired August 7th, 1999. So I was 8, you were 7 at this point.
Yeah.
The sister episode of it is Boating School. It was written by Sherm Cohen, Aaron Springer, and Doug Lawrence. Doug Lawrence, you might not know by name, but Doug Lawrence is Plankton.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he was also Filbert on Rocko's Modern Life, and he is an incredible creative force behind any of the shows he's working on, while also voicing a main character. So he's a pretty incredible person to have on. And then this guy, Derek Dryman, who is also one of the creative directors of the show. Perfect name for a show dealing with undersea life. Dryman. So this is an episode no one knew being introduced, but this is the first episode that you really get to see, kind of from Squidward's point of view, what it's meant to live next to these two characters on either side of them. And even though Squidward doesn't take it in the nicest way possible, it's still a nice episode to see. And this is the first time you get to see really their backyards. And there was even a meme going on about SpongeBob's garage. We've seen it a few times. There was in Reef Blower, you get to see a part of his garage. And this is the first time you get to actually just see his backyard, see how they interact. And we're not leaving this spot of the neighborhood on Conch Street. So we're going to watch Naughty Nautical Neighbors together, and we'll be back in a second.
2,000 years later.
All right. We're back. We watched it, and now you can too. I made a mistake earlier. I said that this was the first episode seeing what it's like living. I completely forgot Bubble Stand was 2 episodes before this, and this is the problem of watching them out of order.
Out of order, yeah.
Well, if you're a listener, you're listening to them in order. But I recorded Bubble Stand. That's one, that's obviously the first one where they're just like staying in the neighborhood. I meant this is the first one where you get to see like the backyard, and almost more of Squidward's house.
Right,
at least
you see
a
that
little bit.
SpongeBob has a garage, and you see,
Right,
yeah.
and we'll get to that. So as a reminder for anyone who wants to follow along with us, we're going to have the episode playing while we're talking. Available, as I say every time, available in the first season DVD sets, the first 100 episodes DVD set, and also we're watching it streaming on Amazon Prime. And if you know anybody, this is not an ad for Amazon, but very easy to link to accounts together. So if you know someone that has Prime, go, hey, let's link our accounts together so I can watch some SpongeBob. So we're going to play the episode now, completely skipping the intro. This is right at the beginning of the title card here, and we're going to play it now. So yeah, we have Naughty Nautical Neighbors. Now, I don't know when the last time you watched this episode. What was your first thoughts after we were done?
I mean, it's an episode that it brought back a lot of memories. I haven't seen it in a while, and it even made me laugh. And even though it's stuff I've seen before, just because I haven't seen it in a while, it's just fun. It's funny.
It's classic. It's
good.
You know what I like?
Old humor.
What I like about earlier SpongeBob is it seems like it's a bit slowed down. Like they're able to take moments of silence. Like right now, you're just hearing the giggling outside. Not a lot of talking up until this point. Their backyards, which we have to mention. Now, when you're in the front, you don't see SpongeBob's outwards flowers going around, and you certainly never see Patrick's little fenced-in area,
whatever you want to call it, poles and rope.
Poles and it's a beach. It reminds me of when you go to the beach and they have those instead of a fence.
It does. Yes, you're right.
But also the fact that Patrick not only has 2 garbage cans, which I'm gonna guess one is for recycling. He also has a barbecue. I don't know if you noticed. He has a charcoal barbecue in his backyard. Which is insane to think of.
How that works, I don't know.
Well, it's SpongeBob logic, but just the fact that I don't think does he even know how to grill? Well, this Patrick is certainly smarter than modern day Patrick. And
He's definitely been dumbed down as the episodes went on.
Well, almost all of the characters. I will say for the most part, after Steven Hillenburg left after the first movie, it seemed that the fourth season was okay, but then it seemed after that, the writers started latching on to those attributes of each character and like pushing them to the moon and back. I also don't know if you know this, but souffle juices can actually make bubbles.
That's what I was going to ask you. How
That's
Squidward
not
was
true.
doing this. But okay, so you got me.
Well, you know what? It's an underwater souffle, so I don't think he's making it with the same ingredients we are on land. So maybe there is something with some soapiness. There's also the idea that, oil and water don't mix, so there could be some oil type substance in his souffle juice. So that's why they're able to stay together like that. I do want, I should try for the show. I should make a YouTube video to try to see in like a pool or the ocean, if you actually took bubbles, like a container of bubbles, would it work with the wand underwater to make bubbles?
It's a good question.
That's a video that'll happen. Probably this summer. We'll go to the beach.
We'll have to do that, yes.
Get an underwater camera of some sort.
Get one of those GoPro.
Yeah, I think my brother has a GoPro. And the fact, I gotta really point this out, because Patrick is smart enough to notice that Squidward is choking, and he saves his life.
But he slams his freaking house on top of his head and folds himself basically into an accordion.
Yes. Which I was pointing out in another episode before. His house also, when the rock lifts up, varies from episode to episode. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's completely flat, and sometimes he has a complete
it's sunken in. It's a complete living room and everything, right? Like in future episodes when he has his parents over. And
ooh, that was a mic noise.
Actually looks like a livable space.
I also believe, and I gotta look this up. I know that there is a girl that saved somebody, like a little girl who saved someone's life based off watching an episode of SpongeBob. I don't know if it's this one, but they saw it, like, I want to say it was a Heimlich maneuver in another episode. Little girl saves life, SpongeBob. That's how you work. That's how you work Google. You just, let's see. Oh, here's another one. This is from 2015. Autistic boy saves classmate from choking thanks to SpongeBob. It's not giving credit to.
Doesn't say which episode.
I asked him where he learned to do that, and he said from SpongeBob SquarePants. Either way, though, SpongeBob's saving lives. 12-year-old Long Island girl saves friend with moves she learned from SpongeBob SquarePants in 2010. Look at this.
2010. So here we are now, 11 years past.
Hold on. The boy saved in 2015, and she saved someone in 2010. Every 5 years, someone almost dies and is saved by a kid who watches SpongeBob.
Here we are in 2020.
2020.
You want to start
choking? I'll save your life, and I'll give credit to SpongeBob.
I don't know if I want to take that risk.
Yeah, so we were doing a stunt for a podcast, and it went terrible. Squidward's Solitude in E minor is not in E minor. It's actually impossible to tell what key is it in, as there are only two notes, C and F, a perfect fourth, respectively. If it was an E minor, the F would be sharp. And yeah, it goes into more musical knowledge, which you're more versed in, so I don't know if you were able to tell. I love the little.
I'm a drummer. I'll be honest with you.
I love the Baywatch nod there with SpongeBob in the red Speedo, knowing that also David Hasselhoff would become a massive part of the SpongeBob franchise. We have two meme moments in this episode. Of course, SpongeBob looking out the window earlier when he sees Squidward and Patrick buddying up. Also, the Patrick falling asleep on the couch is also another meme, which is just, you're getting like multiple memes out of single episodes. It's incredible.
If you had to place a bet I almost bet you that you could say that SpongeBob is.
Oh, it is. It's
one of the most memeable animated shows.
I think it has the record. Obviously, I mean,
you could say The Simpsons. Go back to The Simpsons.
The Simpsons had a few good ones. When SpongeBob asks Squidward to play an A, he actually plays a B sharp. Is that what that thing is?
Yes, B sharp.
Oh yeah, B sharp. Look at that.
Or no. I'm sorry. That's B flat.
A B flat. So, yeah, whoever's making the sounds at Nickelodeon clearly not versed. Squidward's impression of SpongeBob has a New Jersey accent. I don't know if you caught on to that.
I did not. Now, my question is, what did Patrick warm up Squidward's bathtub with?
Farts. Come on. Come on.
I don't know.
I'm trying to... I was thinking of Shrek. I was like, I know there's another cartoon where somebody got in a... I'm trying to think. There's somebody definitely like in a hot tub where it was bubbling, and the second they got out, it stopped. I just can't right now in this moment. I just gotta say also that their trash cans are very similar to ours. Feel like they could have had a bit more creativity with those. Like, what would an underwater trash can look like? But Squidward apparently has his own smell too, even though there probably was a return address on there and he could have just seen it. Even though the party was deemed a dinner party, there was no actual food served at the party, only soda. Trivia for you, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
No. However, Squidward does mention that SpongeBob and Patrick should save room for dinner. So he's got food ready for them, but the entree was soda.
I don't know if you noticed this too. Every portrait inside of Squidward's house is a picture of himself.
That's what. Yeah, he paints himself. That's his muse.
Every room, it's a different picture of himself.
We have. Imagine walking into someone's house and them having paintings of themselves all around. What would you think?
I would think they're very arrogant, very full of themselves. Either that or they're Hugh Hefner. I mean,
I don't think he... Oh, maybe he did.
He probably did.
But he's not painting them. He's like having other people
paint them for him.
So what's more arrogant? Using your money to have other people paint you, or just you doing it yourself?
Probably you doing it yourself.
But that's still a lot of creativity there. There's actually I'm getting word that I'm looking at. There's been a few other memes here in this episode. Definitely not as popular as the ones we've mentioned. This is actually the first episode that the term tartar sauce was used as like an expletive from underwater life. How they even know what tartar sauce is beyond me. There's a few animation errors in this episode. I'm not going to list them. Here's a piece of trivia that you probably don't know. This first season is the only season that was done with original animation cells. Everything is hand drawn.
Yep.
Starting with season 2, it was all computers. But so that's why if you can ever find a animation cell of SpongeBob, there's not that many in the wild because there's only one season to pull from. It's like the holy grail. So yeah, door just fell on Squidward. That is Naughty Nautical Neighbors. We just watched it again. Still, classic episode, very slowed down, humor that I think you could show to anybody, and I honestly think there's some moments in there that even if someone didn't know English and wasn't able to follow along with the dialogue, they would be able to enjoy that to a certain degree. There's a lot of like visual jokes in there. I mean, is this something like when you have kids one day, are you going to show them like early SpongeBob?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Why
Watch
else?
it in order from the beginning.
True. I do tell people there are people out there who have never watched SpongeBob. Season 3 of SpongeBob is the greatest season of television animation in the history of television, and I will stand by that. So before we head off, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anything you'd like to promote? Anything at all or nothing? It's up to you. It's an open floor, open forum.
So no promotions.
Okay.
But I want to touch base on your question that you asked in
Oh,
the beginning.
what was the most
underrated shows
in the 90s? Did you just Google underrated shows?
No. So, I mean, there were a lot of good shows growing up in the 90s, and I'm sticking Nickelodeon only. You know, we won't dig into Cartoon Network.
Hello, Furnace.
You know, any other. Hey, our friend the Furnace is back. We won't dig into any of those other shows from other networks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm looking through this list, and, I mean, there are shows on here that I forgot existed.
What?
I
like
mean,
what? Give me. You got to throw out some examples.
So, there is.
Hey, dude, salute your shorts.
Cousin Skeeter.
Yeah, with the puppet.
Yep, great show.
Great show.
I forgot about it up until now, but now that I'm looking at this,
I think, this is a complete shot in the dark, but I believe the father from Cousin Skeeter is the same father of That's So Raven.
that's something we should look into.
Hold on.
Why you
I
do
need
that?
Because I have you. You can confirm. I don't have my phone. I didn't have my phone in my hand when I said that.
Nope,
I'm going to look
you
this
did
up.
Not.
It's not like I watched Cousin Skeeter before I came here. Oh man. Rondell Sheridan, father of Raven, father of the main character from Cousin Skeeter. Got it. Kablam.
Very good call. Here's one. Animorphs. Remember Animorphs?
Yeah, I remember Animorphs.
Vaguely.
Was that? Yeah, but I know it aired on Nickelodeon, but I don't think that was an original. I think that was a Canadian show that they may have gotten. There's a few of those. There's a few shows that aired on Nickelodeon in the 90s that were from.
So underrated. Here, this one is probably the one that's going to stick out the most. That I thought was, growing up, actually a really good show. I'm just gonna say it.
Go ahead.
I don't condone, anything that has happened after the show with this particular actor or person. But
Yeah.
Little Bill.
Okay. That's
Bill
more
was a
Nick
good
Jr.
show.
More
It
Nick
was
Jr.
Nick Jr., but still Nickelodeon Network.
Yeah.
But I thought
yeah.
Little Bill was a solid show.
Look,
And it taught life lessons to a young child growing up
in the city too. That was also a big deal. There were not a lot of shows that would have cities were a part of the show, but not in centralized. That's why I do believe, and I'll have a TED Talk one day about Hey Arnold being the best cartoon ever.
So Little Bill first aired in 1999.
Okay.
Just like SpongeBob.
In the 90s.
And I think, you had shows like Kenan and Kel that featured lead roles by African Americans.
Yeah.
And this might be one of the first that I'm trying to think of animated series that featured,
Gerald Johansson, baby.
Well,
as I know
the
you're
show
saying,
is Hey Arnold as the lead. Okay, so yeah, Gerald, big part.
Look,
but
man,
you want to look into this Little Bill.
Hold on. This is crazy. Same creator did the same thing decades earlier with Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
That's true.
So, but
what?
To be fair, there wasn't
what network was Fat Albert on?
That was CBS. That definitely wasn't Nickelodeon.
Right.
So for Nickelodeon purposes, you may be right but I think Cousin Skeeter was before that too. But also it's not a cartoon.
Right. If we're looking cartoon or just animated,
yeah,
you can make the argument for Hey Arnold. Gerald
had a lot of episodes surrounded by himself and his family. And,
right.
But yeah. Well, that was, and this is opening up a whole other can of worms, but I don't think and this is a part of my argument with Hey Arnold, I don't think there's any other cartoon that has so many episodes devoted to other characters. Like there's episodes about Sid, Stinky, Harold, obviously Helga, so many of them, but other characters where Arnold isn't the central
What was
focus
the episode with the girl that Arnold had a crush on?
Ruth McDougal.
Lila. She lived almost in like poverty. Almost.
Lila.
Yeah, her
Lila.
father was like
she was the redhead.
Yeah.
She was the one who seems very perfect, very proper. All the girls get like really upset about it.
Yeah.
They pull a prank on her, and then they show up at her house like, let's go see her cry, and she's like eating cans of beans. Like she's very poor, and her father's having a rough time getting a job. That show
went into a lot of personal and deep.
I'm telling you, I have a TED Talk ready about this. The fact that they go into family neglect with Helga. They dealt with rich kids, poor kids. Every race had a character on the show that was a positive influence and wasn't just like negative stereotypes. And they all had different points of view in life. They all had different situations they had to deal with. And you even had slightly ambiguous, like I'm sure if that show could have gone on longer, Mr. Simmons, there was always that idea of him being a homosexual. That could have been something, dived into way later on.
Yeah. I mean, in the 90s, though, they're almost unheard of. TV shows didn't do that.
Yeah, but that stuff was kind of led to the viewer. Like, if you were a kid, like as a kid, I don't remember ever thinking that. I just thought Mr. Simmons was just the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. There's a whole other can of worms about this. But yeah, this was Naughty Nautical Neighbors, and thank you for joining me. I'm sure I'm obviously going to have you on more other times.
Definitely. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and I will look forward to doing another one of these.
Awesome. All right, I don't really have an outro for this, so I want you to just say goodbye, mateys. As cartoonish as you possibly can. Like, I want you really animated. Go.
Goodbye, mateys.
Arr.
I'm ready.